I think it's safe to say that the one with Ross's sandwich is one of the most iconic episodes of Friends, at least in my opinion, but it also has 9 out of 10 on IMDb, which is a pretty phenomenal rating. Definitely one of the most top-rated episodes on IMDb. This actually ranks at the 14th top-rated of all time, which is pretty phenomenal. This is the 9th episode of the 5th season of Friends. It's directed by Gary Halvorson. And as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. With this one, my notes are grouped by part of the episode rather than going through things chronologically. And there's quite a lot to cover, at least a lot of positive things that I think are really brilliant. But the 3 main parts of the narrative are all really fabulous. So we'll go with the title part first, which actually, even though I think is the most iconic part of the episode, and that's not always the case, the title of the episode, in my opinion, doesn't always correspond with the best or the most important part of the episode. But this is definitely the case here. And Ross is annoyed because somebody ate his Thanksgiving leftover sandwich. The one, of course, with the moist maker. And he decides, after saying, someone ate the only good thing going on in my life, which sounds dramatic, but actually, in Ross's world, that's kind of unfortunately true. He decides that he's going to leave a note on his lunch and nobody will steal it. And unfortunately, that doesn't work out. He's called into the office to discuss these threatening notes on his sandwich, and it turns out that somebody stole his sandwich and threw it away. And of course, Ross shouts, "You threw my sandwich away?" And it's just fabulous. I can't hear the words "my sandwich" in any sentence. I can't read the words "my sandwich." I don't know how frequently that comes up in my life, but I can't hear those words without hearing Ross, and I absolutely love it. He then comes into Central Park eating candy floss or cotton candy. He is very chill. He has been signed off work because of the stress, which obviously is kind of a heavy topic. I feel like everybody has a breaking point. Ross has clearly reached his. So I think it is addressing an important topic, but of course it's doing it in a way that's very funny, very memorable, and I think it does a really great job of that. So for me, easily the most iconic part of this episode. We then have the part where Phoebe is reading Wuthering Heights for a class that she's taking, and Rachel wants to go with her. And Rachel hadn't read the book. She thought she had, but then remembered she hadn't. And she steals Phoebe's answer about symbolism. And this is because the teacher puts her on the spot. She doesn't know what to say. She doesn't want to look like an idiot. So she takes Phoebe's answer. And Phoebe's expression when she realises that is brilliant. And we then have the next class. And they're supposed to have read Jane Eyre. And Phoebe realises she can have some fun with this and get her own back, and I think it plays out beautifully because she tells Rachel that it's about cyborgs, that Jane Eyre is a cyborg, and Phoebe actually tells the teacher that Rachel has some good points about Jane Eyre, and it seems like initially she was going to get away with it because the teacher thinks that she means feminism when she's talking about it being ahead of the book's time, or indeed Bronte being ahead of her time. And then she starts to say, also, the robots. And Phoebe's expression in that moment was just absolutely fabulous. And then ultimately, Monica ends up going with Phoebe, and Monica is the opposite of Rachel in this situation. She is overly enthusiastic, and I love it. Absolutely love it. This is absolutely what I thought studying literature at university would be like. It's not far off. Honestly, it isn't. We didn't discuss cyborgs whenever we discussed the Brontes, but certainly enjoyed this part of the episode as well. And then we have some interesting points with Monica and Chandler and Joey. And Joey is really getting the rough end of the deal here. He still has to keep quiet about Chandler and Monica, but at what expense? It starts off, in fact, the opening scene of the episode starts off with Phoebe sitting on something on the chair in Monica and Rachel's apartment. It's underwear, and we know, of course, that it's Chandler's underwear. But Joey has to pretend it's his, and he says, "I'm Joey, I'm disgusting," and he has to touch the underwear, and of course we, the viewer, know that that's Chandler's underwear he's touching, but everybody else, or at least not Monica and Chandler, think that it's Joey's. Why would he not touch his own underwear? We then learn that actually Monica and Chandler don't want to tell everybody else because it's going so well. And I think it's nice to finally have that confirmation about why they don't want to tell anybody, because I always think it would be so much easier to just tell people and then there's no sneaking around. We realise that once Joey found out, it did become a little bit easier for them, because obviously they can be in Chandler and Joey's apartment. And it would be so much easier if they told everybody, but at least we have an explanation now. Joey then comes in from a date with his date, and there's a blanket on the floor, and then the date notices the video camera. And I will say, if you're sneaking around, granted Joey does know, but the gang have a habit of just walking into each other's apartments. So setting up a camera in the living room doesn't seem like the best idea when you're trying to be sneaky. It's very hard to pretend you're doing something else. If they leapt away from each other, there's still the sexy scene in the video camera. So they're not the smartest of people, Chandler and Monica. Joey's date is obviously disturbed by this. She runs away. Rachel sees the situation, and now Rachel thinks Joey is doing something disgusting on the first date, and she's obviously not happy with Joey there. So once again, Joey is made to look like the bad guy. Then down at Central Park, Monica gives Chandler a naked picture of herself, and then it's back at the apartment, and Joey then enters the apartment with a bucket of chicken. He has this KFC bucket, and we then have this naked picture of Monica. He's looking at it. The gang come in, they see this scene, and Joey says that he slept with Monica. And actually, I feel like, yeah, go for it. Turn things around and make it seem a little bit less creepy, because why not? The situation is already tremendously bizarre. And Monica, definitely, I think surprisingly, I don't remember how I felt when I first watched this episode. I've seen it many times, and I first watched it 20-something years ago. But I feel like it would have been surprising for Monica to go along with that, but I think she must have realised in that moment that it's easier to pretend she slept with Joey once than it is to try and unravel her relationship with Chandler on the spur of the moment. And she says, "I'm Monica, I'm disgusting." She kept Joey's underwear as a souvenir. I like the fact that they remembered the underwear in the apartment, because if they'd overlooked that, it would have been a bit of a plot hole. And sure, there are plot holes in Friends, but I feel like the show generally does a pretty good job of remembering things. And I say that because sometimes TV shows just don't. And Monica then ultimately manages to get away with it by saying she slept with Joey one time in London. And it's a fun episode. And as I said, I like the fact that we find out why Chandler and Monica still want to keep this a secret. It makes sense. It does. But also, it seems like, and I know what happens next, of course, but it does seem like we're getting closer and closer to the truth. And there are exciting, fabulous episodes to come, but more on those when we get there. For now, I am pleased to say that the one with Ross's sandwich is a pretty phenomenal episode. Very fun, very entertaining. Some more meaningful moments, particularly with Ross reaching his breaking point, but again, it's still done with a lot of comedy, and I rather enjoyed it. The one with Ross's sandwich is a pretty fantastic episode of Friends.